I'm done. I'm taking intro to psychopharmacology on Tuesday and Thursday.
I will be right back, guys. Okay.
Yeah, this seems like an intense course. I talked to the professor. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. It's what you do. Yeah.
One was not listening to do it.
Yeah.
These guys like he's that took his behavioral medicine stuff.
Well, you know what? This is encouraging for you guys.
Exactly. Well, I already got it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm just doing education. It's not like neuroscience.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we need to get out into the real world.
Yeah.
He's a tough professor.
Sure. Yeah, I'd rather have that than as long as it's fast.
Yeah, so that's cool. Please every week.
There's no missing out. But it's teacher.
Yeah, we do it. We got information and first day came from totally chill. At least I did that with she had like sent an email. She had me on the list. So it's like
For 11?
yeah, for 311.
Okay.
Yeah, Open University, you're like not a student, you can't have classes.
That sounds just
It was better doing it this way than waiting a year. So we registered.
At least you have some classes done, you know.
I'll graduate in June.
There you go.
Just gotta pass this class. That's why I'm nervous about Rule 11. It's like she hasn't shown us like the term before or anything like that. And I was like, what if I totally bomb that test, you know?
Like for this class, like they actually had to add 50 to teach the second class.
Yeah.
There's so many people are trying to take the class. Right. You heard about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we'll keep going in a minute. I'm having trouble logging into the computer, so I might have to use mine. See, this is genius Dr. Amadeo.
Yeah, genius.
Works in magic.
Genius. That's the old.
We're gonna switch user.
Yeah. Okay, then it's interrupt in between. Wait, maybe you can take caps now.
No, if it's a different system, I think I think that is required to log into. How's that?
If I was to live in the
Oh.
that's that. It's cool. I gotta finish up.
One time it worked where I pressed this last time.
I feel like we're like Zoolander, and we're trying to find that the files are in the computer.
Yeah. You can open this up, maybe. No, okay, I'm sorry.
I tried doing that yesterday.
I am not gonna be able to help you on
That's
this
all
one.
right. We're good.
Yeah, good
We'll
luck.
make it
Sorry about that, guys.
All right.
Fun.
Cool. Anyways, how y'all doing? Thanks for coming out. Welcome to the spring quarter. My name is Dr. Dante, and this is Psych 433, Experimental Psychology, Biology. And we're gonna hopefully have a pretty good time, learn a lot about cognitive neuroscience, and hopefully some pretty cool ways to work with that data. So, welcome. I'm gonna ask for your patience, if you don't mind indulging me, particularly for today, as we try to sort through how I'm going to teach a computer-based class without a computer module up here just yet. So I'm using mine. I'll just go off of my own notes from it, but it will be an easily solved problem in the near future, and I will work off the computer on the screen. Like most classes, for whatever reason, there seems to be a couple of hiccups on that here today, but we're going to work through that pretty easily. So if you don't mind just kind of hanging tight and being cool about it, we will sort that out. Sound good? Okay, so anyways, I guess that's kind of a primer into kind of what the overarching scope of hopefully our efforts this semester can focus on, which is going to look at experimental psychology, particularly in the context of human neuroscience. And so a lot of you guys I've had the pleasure of getting to know from previous classes, and you know that we've talked a little bit about some elements of human neuroscience, and particularly we're going to zero in on some methods in human neuroscience that psychologists use to understand the nature of the mind, the brain, and how those two elements can be found and observed to interact, so that we can understand hopefully some answers to questions about cognition. And we'll use physiological measurements to come to some of those arrivals. So particularly, the class is going to be heavily focused on learning how to use EEG methods, and particularly really zero in on how do we equip you guys with the tools to succeed outside of CSUSB with the abilities to work with and understand the conceptual issues, but also work with and analyze professional industrial grade EEG data so that you can answer some experimental questions. So you can be good candidates for jobs, good candidates for graduate school applications, for medical school applications, and positions that might require the knowledge and skill sets to be able to work with actual real human neuroscience data. So that's one of my main goals from the course, is to equip you with some of those tool sets. Some of those tool sets are going to be manual, in terms of manually knowing how to work with software systems, with sometimes even hardware systems, and with the coding and the software necessary in all of modern cognitive psychology and human neuroscience to be able to analyze the data that we collect. So that's a very manual process. But some of those other tools are also tools of cognition, that is, tools how to think. How do we think critically about the data? How do we think critically about designing a good experiment? And how do we think critically about assessing the relative merits and weaknesses of data that we can collect and of data that we read that other people report? So that's a real skill set too, being able to think, and think particularly critically in a scientific way about the data and the results. So we're going to work on that. So we have basically, some of the skill sets that we're going to work on might be, like I said, one sort of manual. Okay, so we're going to learn how to basically program and analyze data. It's a key core component to being a modern psychologist, particularly in the realms of biology and physiology. The other skill set that we'll be developing is what we said a moment ago, which is what?
Critical thinking.
Yeah, critical thinking, cognitive skill sets, right? Cognition. Right? Thinking critically. About data or results, but also about experimental design. And really experimental questions. How do we test them? This is a really hard thing to do. This kind of a skill set, I mean, full professors and scientists still need to practice that. We all need to stay sharp on that skill set. It's a very difficult element of being scientists and psychologists. So we're going to focus a lot about that and integrate this stuff together. And we're also going to work on another third core skill set, which is basically communicating our results is scientific writing. So a core part of the class is going to be built around scientific writing, but also some reading too. Because it's very difficult to get good at scientific writing. You don't know how other people write, right? It's kind of like if you're an athlete and you want to learn a certain technique or something like that, it's helpful to watch other really good athletes and how they do it. And you can kind of learn some tips and tricks about some of the strategies that they use, some of the techniques they use. So reading the scientific literature is going to be a core part of this too. And from that, we can see how there's models that other people write from, and we'll build from those models so that you can try your hand at developing some of those writing components too. Because let's say that you are just totally world-class, awesome, brilliant genius at these two things. And that's awesome, right? But if you can't communicate, bless you, if you can't communicate your results, that's a real problem. Because nobody's going to know your brilliance. Nobody's going to know that awesome new discovery you just made if you can't communicate it effectively, right? So it's really, really important. And bless you. Like Gregor Mendel. You guys know Gregor Mendel?
Yeah.
Who is he? What did he do? What did he do?
He examined genetics.
Yeah, he basically was the father of the modern field of genetics. But when he died, all of his results stayed in his notebook on a shelf in a library for a really long period of time. Nobody read them. He didn't communicate them. It was only found out years and years and years after he passed away. So I don't want that to happen to you guys. I want you guys to get credit for your discoveries. So we're going to work a lot on scientific writing. And so that would be kind of like 3 core components as sort of an overview for the course, and kind of the task that I feel charged with guiding you towards. Now, to do that, we also, together, have some challenges that we're all tasked with towards this end. And so some of those challenges is that we have a very short period of time, 10 weeks. Right? Now, granted, we have 5 hours twice a week. That's a lot of time, too. But we got a very short period of time to really cram a lot of stuff in. And I promise you, we're going to cram a lot of stuff in. Right? It's a challenge for me to teach a bunch of the stuff we're going to have to teach, and it's going to be a challenge to learn it. Now, fortunately, I've got some pretty good tips and tricks that have been pretty successful for people who've taken this class in the past to actually achieve this high order, this total build that we're going to succeed in. Okay? Because we're going to learn a multitude of things. All right? So in order to kind of work within this framework, we're going to basically have the opportunity to learn about basically cognitive psychology, basically experimental design and issues in cognitive psychology. We're going to learn about how do scientists, basically the science of memory and possibly brain states related to memory. Okay, now we also have to teach, like we said over there, issues in coding, software, and being able to read and understand the literature review, as well as writing, as well as going to learn how to analyze data. And that's kind of enough already, right? That's a ton of stuff to learn. Okay, so it's my job is going to be really hard because I gotta get our whole team here to do all this stuff, and you guys got to be on board with it. So it's going to be a very full quarter. Okay, and I've taught this class a couple times in the past, and it always works out really well. People find it very challenging, but very fulfilling by the end of it. They usually have products that they're pretty proud of and the array of skills that they've learned. And so in that regard, this is going to be a really, really different class, probably, than just about any class you've ever taken or experienced before. Because my attitude to it is that I want to teach you guys some stuff that's actually practical and useful. Skills. How to do stuff with your hands and your mind, rather than rotely regurgitating for a bunch of multiple choice tests, which we're probably not going to have. Okay? So, and that tends to be started off with a little bit of a learning curve, you know, because we got to learn a bunch of new stuff. But then once you get fluid when we learn the systems, it ends up being a pretty rewarding experience, because you can look back at the end and reflect on like, wow, I actually learned like a really cool skill set of things to be able to do with data that you can put on a job application and continue with your research or other type of scientific endeavor. So before we get into further details, are there any questions about any of that? Broadly? No? Okay, cool. So we have a lot of time. They gave us like 5 hours, right? Okay, so it's obviously, you guys had to enroll in 2 classes, right? So there's like a seminar section and a lab section. We're going to blend the 2 together for the most part. Okay? And so we'll sort of interchange among that, and definitely not going to keep you for 5 hours straight, because I need a break too. So we'll have little breaks built in, so feel free if you got to use the restroom or, you know, get something to drink or something like that. That's all cool too. So let's see here. So anyways, about some of this stuff I was just talking about, the nature of kind of what I had planned was to be able to work with a lot of original scientific data that will allow us to explore the delicate balances and nuances between both the conscious and the unconscious mind. Okay? So those are sort of like lofty philosophical things, right? The conscious and the non-conscious mind are things that as psychologists we're very interested in studying oftentimes. And for the last, I don't know, couple thousand years, it's been pretty tough to do. Because all we can kind of do is think about it. And our intuition is not very reliable, is it? We think about things. Most of you guys who had classes before, you know, we've talked about the history of neuroscience and how the early predominating phase of history, you had the philosophers and people thinking about how the brain worked. And there were some interesting insights that came about from it. But we also know that our intuition is fallible, and we can be led astray by biases in our intuition. And that, of course, with the advent and development of the scientific method, it gave us some extra tools and guidelines by which to help keep our intuition in check. So some of the tools that we have are now, amazingly, technology that can allow us to gain insight into the human mind. And that's what we're going to work with. I'm really excited about it. It's something that I've devoted the last 10 or 15 years of my life to working with EEG, and I'm really excited about being able to share that with you guys. So I'm going to try to teach you all the tools and tips and tricks that I've kind of learned the hard way in that 10 or 15 year journey about how we can use the technology of physiology at the scalp in order to reveal different patterns of brain activity that can give us insight into the differential operations of both the conscious and non-conscious mind. How does that sound? Okay? Yeah? Okay. So that's sort of the overarching thing that we're going to look at. And particularly, we're going to look at that in the domain of how people learn and remember things. Okay? So that'll be kind of the overarching thing. A core part of the class is going to be critically dependent on learning how to use certain software systems. Okay, so how many of you guys have had a chance to kind of skim over the syllabus yet? Most of you guys? Okay, cool. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth as we move on, but hopefully most of you guys are familiar with the idea that I tried to introduce in the syllabus, which is that the course is going to be very much based in a software program called MATLAB. So you're going to need a laptop computer and the software system. The software system is usually about $500 to $1,000, but they have a great student price. It's like 99 bucks, and that will take the place of having to buy a textbook. So there are textbooks assigned for the course too, and they are required. However, there are digital versions of them that I will make available for you. So if you like reading by paper, I like reading by paper. I'm kind of old like that. My eyes like paper. By all means, you can go get the books or check them out from the library, but you don't have to go spend any money on them because I've basically got some digital versions for you. So you can save that money there and apply it to the MATLAB software. Sound good?
You'll put it up on that board.
Yeah. So what we'll do, how many of you guys are familiar with Google Drive as like an online cloud computing system? We're going to use that system a lot to communicate because that's where I'm going to store a lot of data that you guys can have, and it's going to be where I can put some of those files up and you can download them from. Sound good? Okay, so that's the one core element of the class. You're going to need a laptop. You're going to need MATLAB software. There's an impediment or, any sort of barriers to that, come talk to me after class or something like that. We'll try to work something out. But it's going to be a really core element of the class. And I've taught it before where that wasn't so much required. We used the desktop computers like this, but at the end of class when I asked students for feedback, I got like 100% feedback rate from students being like, you've got to require MATLAB so that we can take this stuff home and work on it for homework and practice and do our work at home, which was what you can do then from the laptop. So it works out really good in that respect. So it might sound a little funky right now, but trust me, it's going to be the best part of the class for you. Are there any questions about that? No? Okay, cool. So let's see here. We have a couple other things. So what I'd like to do today first is we're going to I'll explain a few more details about the online drive system that'll give you access to a lot of files and stuff, and and we can start downloading some sample stuff, and we can talk a little bit more about some of the details of EEG, details of some memory studies. We're going to design some studies that you guys can conduct some experiments on and analyze some data on. Okay? And again, the overarching goal for you at the end of the class is to be able to produce a scientific report communicating the findings of your analyses. Okay? That's going to be like a big grade, and we'll talk about that in more detail as we go in. But that's kind of like the end goal of the class. There's going to be a bunch of stepwise little progress reports that we'll do along the way to help guide you to that point. But at the end of the class, that's going to be the big project of writing a lab report, some sort of a capstone experience that you can be proud of, that communicates whatever really cool stuff you found in the brain, which is awesome. And so, speaking of the brain, why are we working with computers? Well, if you want to work with the brain in the modern era, then it's all done in computers. And that's what I've designed this class to bring you up to speed on at the most modern cutting edge level. So we're going to use the most up-to-date software systems that are industrial grade, that are the most advanced in the field, and that will prepare you to do the most advanced work that you can do. And anytime you're going to work with physiology or any type of cognitive elements or psychological elements of biology, that has to be done, for the most part, at least in my domain of work, with computers. And so we record things like EEG or fMRI. All the magic happens when that data that's collected is transformed through algorithms, through software, into meaningful representations that we see in our data figures of patterns of brain activity and things like that. And so that's why we're going to be so critically based on computer systems, is because that's how modern neuroscientists work. I want to get you guys up to speed on that. So for any of you guys who aren't familiar with computers, most computers, they store data, even the letter of every word that you see in Microsoft Word, it's just represented by a string of zeros and ones. So when you see these really cool, flashy brain pictures and stuff like that in brain data, it's really a representation of zeros and ones in a computer. And that's why we're going to be so critically based with these systems. Does that sound good? Okay, so that's sort of the reasoning why that we're going to be taking, the approaches that we're going to be taking, and learning the tools that we're going to be learning with. And so we will talk more about the syllabus in a little bit. We will start downloading and start orienting to some material in just a little bit. And we'll talk about some different elements of experiments that we can explore for the quarter. Does that all sound? A lot of stuff to do, right? Okay, cool. So, any questions yet? No? Okay. Is everybody logged into the desktop? If you haven't, you can take a chance to do that, and maybe to use it. I can use it too as a chance to get to know you guys a little bit better as well. So let's see here. So I'll introduce myself a little bit, and then maybe because we have a relatively small class, you guys can kind of introduce yourselves, and we can kind of get to know one another a little bit better. So as you guys are logging in, just use your normal CSUSB credentials. Log in. Obviously, I'm Dr. Dante. I'm a new professor here at CSUSB. Really excited to be here. I came here by way of University of Texas in Dallas, where I developed this class and taught it for a couple years. And then did a postdoctoral fellowship in neuroimaging at University of Texas Southwest Medical School's Advanced Imaging Research Center while working at the University of Texas as well. And before that, I was back here in the great state of California for graduate school at University of California, Davis. So many of you guys are from NorCal or looking to go up there. Pretty cool place. And then prior to that, I was at New Jersey, did an undergraduate degree in psychology there, and was first generation college student in my family, first person to graduate college, worked my way through doing bartending and landscaping and security and busting tables and janitor work and cleaning toilets and cleaning floors and doing dishes and all sorts of fun stuff. So it's been a pretty cool run, and happy to be here. Really excited to work together with you. And that's kind of the idea. I study the cognitive neuroscience of learning and memory. I use EEG, and I want to use this course as an opportunity to share with you guys those elements of advanced aspects of cognitive neuroscience based upon your previous coursework. So, is everybody able to log in? No? Nobody can? You can't? Do you have your normal logins that? Okay. Is there anybody else not able to log in? You can't? But some of you guys can log in? Okay, well, we'll work on that. And that's another reason why it's important to have your own laptop. So, does anybody not have their own laptop that they can bring in the future? No? Okay, we can work on that. Talk with me after class. Anybody else? Okay, so then, again, this sort of underscores that importance. So, in the future classes, it's going to be expected that you bring your own laptops so that we don't have some of the little kerfuffles that we have between you not being able to log in and me neither. Okay, awesome. Yeah, just log in. So what I'm going to do is, let's see here. I'm going to send an email to everyone here that's going to give access to a folder on Drive. Okay, so hang with me for a second or two. I'll shoot it out to you, and then you guys can take that email. If you have your laptop with you, you can follow it from the laptop and just download it there. If not, for today's purposes, you can put it on the desktop. But my understanding, at least based on that sign, is that if you put it on the desktop, it will then be deleted once you log off, which is one of the reasons as well why the desktops are not the most reliable for the course. But I'm also in the process of working on that too to try to help you out with that. So, anyways, I'm going to send that to you here. Give me a second. While I'm doing that, maybe you guys can help introduce yourselves to me. I can learn a little bit about who you are, what your background is, maybe what year student you are, you know, your motivation for taking the class, whether it's just to graduate, or because you're interested in stuff, or whatever. We can get to know each other a little bit in that regard. How does that sound? Yeah? Okay. You want to start with you, Fitria? Just because I know you more?
So you want us just to know what you're in?
Just introduce yourself to us. Like, we'll be working together for the next 10 weeks.
My name is Katria. I am a biotech major. I graduate this June, and I'm hoping to get into an occupational therapy program by June. It's my last quarter.
Awesome.
My name's Andy. A biopsych major also. Should be graduating after one more quarter after this one. Hopefully I'm trying to add this class, so hopefully I get in.
Cool. Well, welcome, Andy.
Hi, my name is Julia. Graduated from University in psychology. I'm a current grad student here for school psychology, and that's about it.
Awesome. Welcome.
My name is Alma. I'm a biotech major. This is my last study.
Awesome. Welcome. So, by the way, if I can interrupt for just 1 second, I think that most people should have gotten, I think I emailed people, so just keep an eye out on your CSUSB email, and if you get it, follow the link, and then basically download the folder that's in it. The folder's kind of big, so it's going to take a long time, which is why we're starting with it now, so it'll download in the background while we talk about a bunch of other stuff. Sound good? Okay, so I'm sorry to have cut you off. You can go ahead. Cool. Welcome. Cool. Welcome. Cool. Awesome. Welcome. Awesome. Welcome. All right.
I'm graduating in medicine.
All right.
I'm Kristen. I graduated in June. I'm a biotech major. I kind of don't really know what I want to do yet exactly after the master's program, but I really want to get into ABA.
Cool. It's a good thing to look into.
I'm Nicole. I'm a biotech major too, and this is actually my last class I need to graduate. And I have to get my master's in clinical science, so I can work at mental institutions, so it's a non-employment system.
Interesting. Cool.
I'm Scott. I'm not a biopsych major, so that's interesting. Just a regular psych major. And I have a background in addiction studies, and I'd love to, if I could add this class, I'd love to apply what I want to do to neuroscience and go into grad school.
Awesome. Welcome.
And my name is Ryan. I'll be graduating in June, and I'll be going to University of Redlands for a master's in education.
Awesome.
My name is Simon. I'm a biotech major, graduated in fall, and on my work with people with mental disabilities.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Welcome. Well, we'll get to work with that a little bit here too.
Julia, also a biosec major. I'm graduating this June. These are just close to
Cool.
My name's Kelsey. I'm really excited. I am graduating in June. I want to actually join the Peace Corps before I go for a master's program or anything. And then I eventually want to either work in clinical psychology, like as a clinical psychologist, or as a psychiatrist. Yeah.
I'm Xavier, I'm also a biosec major. I graduate this quarter. That's the one.
Cool. Glad to have you. Awesome. Very ambitious. Try to help you out there. Good luck. Alright, cool. Well, I'm glad to meet all you guys. I'm really excited about spending the quarter with you guys. And we're going to have a lot of time to get to know each other better. So, forgive me if I don't remember names right off the bat. Sometimes you might have to remind me, but I'll ask. But it's not. Don't take it personal. I just, I study memory, but it's mostly because mine is terrible. So, help me out a little bit there, if you don't mind on occasion. So, did anybody have trouble getting the link? Nobody got it yet? Ah, okay. Let's see. We'll try it again.
Mike, you said it was a big file, so let's see.
No, it's just a link. Let's see this again here. So, would it go to each of your respective emails with your student ID numbers? Is that your email addresses? No. Yeah? Okay. Let me just. No, it's gonna go through a different mechanism, but we're gonna just try it out again, and I'll ask for a little bit of patience, and we'll sort this through. So try that, and I'll even get another mechanism here. Let's see. Any luck yet? Didn't come in? Okay, we'll do this another way. So by the way, all you guys are registered for both sections, right? Awesome. Let's see. What I'll do is I'll send it as an announcement. I'll put a link in here. So don't take offense. There's no other salutations in the email right now. It's just a link. But I meant to say hello. How are you? Here's the link to download. But for practical purposes, see if that one. See if you can follow that link, and if you can, yeah, okay. Let's take a look if you can copy and paste that into a browser, maybe, and let's see if that works. Okay, looks like everyone's gonna have to request access, and I'll give it to everyone. Yeah, good times. A lot of access. Yeah, I can't do that, unfortunately. So just bear with me with a little bit of patience. We'll get everybody squared away here. So this will make it actually a lot easier for us all to work together on the same page. And what we'll end up doing is we'll do this now as sort of a sample, but hopefully when in next class when everybody brings their laptops, we'll probably have to do this again, or at least you can do this at home. But my recommendation is because it's such big files to download that at least you can do it before you come to class, but bring your laptop on campus and use the campus network speeds. They're just a lot faster than we're going to get at home. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just basically cruising through here and going through each person to grant access, and it'll come as soon as we score this up. So when I grant access to the few of you guys that have already gotten it, do you get notified then too on the back end? Or you just maybe not? But you can just go to it though. Okay. So I'll just tell you guys when I'm done going through everybody's name, because it doesn't look like it's the most fluid process of. It just requires me to go through it one by one, and once I do that, I'll let you all know. So this is going to be a pretty unique class in that regard. We're going to do some really new and sort of novel stuff, and definitely new and novel approaches to this stuff. It's one of the only classes of its kind that's taught in the country, and when I developed it a couple years ago, it ended up working out pretty good, and it really gives a pretty unique window into some stuff that people can hopefully find to be pretty useful. Yes, sir. You got it? Cool, man. Then just if you get it, just whatever, right click, download, or whatever, and it should take a reasonably long time to do, but that's why I want to get it done early. We'll just let it cook in the background. It's kind of like if anybody works in a kitchen or a restaurant or cooks at home, you got to think about how the whole meal is going to cook at different times, right? You don't want to start making the salad at the same time you put the steak in, right? Because it's going to have a long time to make the steak and real quick to whip up the salad. So you put the steak in early and let it slow cook in the background. That's kind of what we're doing here with this approach. Oh, I should say, you should not be using your Google accounts. You should be using your CSUSB accounts to access, by the way. That might be one reason why it's sending me all these requests. But that's one thing to keep in mind, is that it should be staying within the CSU account. So anybody do something cool over break? Awesome. Oregon. What'd you do out there?
Boone County.
Cool. That is pretty
Out
cool.
in the middle of nowhere.
That's the best part. What?
Slog It Out.
What's Get Out?
That movie, do you know how to get out of
No, I'm kind of a dork.
Oh, they're funny. Well, there are these comedians who have a show called King Deal, and definitely check it out. There were people who did Obama movies and shit, or they have Obama and his angry later. Well, one of the guys went on to make a suspense horror movie, and it was actually really good. It was like he did the suspense, well, which is kind of funny, because he's really a comedic guy, so you're like, oh, maybe all comedians have some issues. But that was funny.
I drove up to Seattle.
Seattle?
Yeah, I drove up there. So I
Long
drove
drive.
through Oregon, and Oregon, driving through Oregon is no fun.
I was gonna drive, but I decided
Yeah.
And I drove all the way up there, and I saw Get Out. It's good. I saw Family Man. The weather was horrible.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, if you could look, you're just gonna have to accidentally sign in.
No, I'm gonna have to work on that after I get to the other people first.
Oh, I didn't know if you were gonna.
Yeah, I'll start talking again when I'm done.
Okay.
Mostly, I gotta sort this out for everyone.
Oh, wow.
That's what it was doing, like, you know, spring break, because you turned down the lake. Okay. Also, like, because I reserved it like a bit before, so the price was super high. It's like, is it 5 days?
I spent $130 driving up gas.
That's it?
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. Then I got to but then driving all around Washington, the ag, because you have ones all year.
Oh, okay. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I'm kind of over driving. No more road trips for a while.
Well, I kind of want to leave that one. Thinking about like driving up there and doing some places along the way, but it's just gonna take too long. And that, the other, it's, I don't know.
If you got time, though.
Yeah, I didn't have time to do that.
Because I drove all the way to TBQ, like I said, at 7 a.m. I was in Palm Springs on Desert, and 16 hours in Valley.
I think that's awesome.
Hey, you know, I did it. I left early, and I ended up, I ended up doing 12, so, yeah.
I think you didn't make 16. Yeah, right there, it's very bad.
I'm leaving it alive in the sense.
You leaving the flag? You good?
No, well, you know, we'll see. A few years at least, that'd
be like perfect.
Yeah. I'll see if I can, you know, still. Then my road trips will be confined.
Yeah, we're doing a lot, so you can want to go to it.
Right? But the plane ticket, for July, I was